So, guys, like I said, I was speaking for a number of years. I didn't mean to get into ministry other than to help men in my parish. That's all I wanted to do. I realized there wasn't anything in our parish for men that was helping them. I never meant to get into full-time ministry. I thought I'd sell auto parts the rest of my life, and I was more than happy to do that. But it wasn't long after my life had changed and all the things I shared with you, that I started to realize the only time I was ever happy was when I was with my family or when I was helping men to grow in the faith. And so I quit my job at Napa Auto Parts and I went to work for a small ministry. I took about a $175,000 pay cut for that, but I was happier than I'd ever been. I was selling men's programs and people started asking me to speak. Well, I started going to conferences, and that was exciting to go and speak at conferences like this, or ones that y'all have in the spring. And guys would come up and say, "Well, man, I went to confession for the first time," and all those things like that. I thought, man, it's powerful. But there was one time I was coming home, and I was on the West Coast. My wife called, and she said, "Hey, how did it go?" And I was about to get on the plane, and I said, "Well, it went like usual." I mean, guys said that they went to confession for the first time in forever, or it impacted them a certain way. And she goes, "Well, if that's the case, why do you sound so depressed?" And I said, "Well, I just wonder what happens to them on Monday, right? Because we can shoot people up the Jesus roller coaster, and they can come flying down the other side if there's not somewhere for them to go, somewhere for them to belong." So I asked her, I said, "Well, what's happened with you while I was gone?" She said, "Well, Jacob got in trouble, the toilet exploded, I had a wreck," and I thought, "Oh, great. Like, every time I leave, something like this happens." And at the time, to be honest with you, I was probably bringing in $500 for going and leaving for a day and a half and speaking. And so I said, "Well, what do you want me to do, Angela? What do you want me to quit? I can go get a sales job again and make the money I made before? I know I can." I was like, "But I really feel like this is what Jesus wants." And she goes, "No, I don't ever want you to stop, because I know God's called you to this. But what I want you to do is build fruit that lasts. If you're going to leave, build fruit that lasts." And man, that was like somebody had the key, or like a decoder ring to a message I had in my heart that I could never put in my own words. And so when she said that, I was like, "I got to go and get on the plane. I love you. I can't wait to see you." I get on the plane and I started praying, right? "Lord, fruit that lasts, fruit that lasts, fruit that lasts." So obviously he took me to John 15, where he talks about that. "I've anointed you to bear fruit and fruit that lasts." So I started there, and then I started to hear Paul's name. And I thought, well, okay, I was a good Baptist growing up. I know Paul's letters, but I'll flip through them, see if I see anything, and I didn't. And so I said, well, maybe it's not about what he wrote, maybe it's about who he was. And Paul had this radical conversion, and he waited like the Lord asked him to. His eyes were opened up, and then Barnabas grabbed him, and they went out, and they started building churches. They started teaching people what they knew. And so I started going, you know what, I'm never going to beat Dr. Hahn. I can't write a book on Revelations in an hour and a half, or whatever it takes. Right? I can't do things like that. So what can I do? Well, I'm really gifted, and I use that in a humble way, but we all have gifts. And I started to realize I'm good at helping people come into the faith, to start realizing they can be different, to help them open up in their own struggles, and then I can help them build men's groups. So that's what I want to talk about today. And we were meeting in our group. We started meeting that night that I told everybody what was going on with me. We met every Wednesday night since, except for Christmas week and Thanksgiving week. And if there's a month with 5 Wednesdays, because we only have 4 pillars. So we give that, like this month, we have the 5th Wednesday off. But, we started the group, and it was going great. Guys were showing up, they were sharing their lives. It's where the first 50 episodes of our podcast came from, where guys were telling us what they struggled with. And the deacon that had a show on EWTN asked me to start a podcast. And I thought, well, I'll talk about the things I know they're actually dealing with. So we started doing that. But after a while, it just became like a city dump. Guys were showing up, and they're like, I suck this week because of this, and my wife hates me, and my kids hate me, and my job stinks. And I was getting phone calls all through the week with guys complaining about their lives. I'm like, well, what about Wednesday night? We're talking about this stuff. Well, I get it out, it makes me feel better, but I don't know how to actually live it. So I went, man, Lord, what am I going to do? I thought we were doing a great thing. So I did what I always do when I don't know what I'm doing. I went to adoration. And I sat there and I said, Lord, I thought this was good. We meet 4 times a month. You're the greatest of angels that ever lived. So what are 4 things you did with your apostles? And before I left the room that day, I had in front of me on the journal I still have today, it said, John, I formed them, I worshiped with them, I served with them, and I fellowshiped with them. And I went, wow, it's 4 very different things, and 4 different approaches. So there was a structure that was born out of that, and I'll come back to that in a little bit. But first, I want to talk to you about, like, why are we here? We're here because we want to grow in our own holiness, and we want to help others too, hopefully. That we want to answer the call to be a disciple. To do that, we have to understand what men are really doing, or are dealing with. And for years, men's ministries have launched, and they know there's problems with men, but we kind of put out a product and say, here's what we got. And if men come, great. If they don't, well, what else do we do? As a sales guy, and an automotive sales guy, if I was out selling wrenches and guys needed screwdrivers, I wasn't much help to them, right? Because I was offering something they weren't interested in. So you have to know what the issues are that men are dealing with, and that's what I want to talk about here. One, the world, the flesh, and the devil. Men are buying into everything from the world, the narrative, all that stuff. If you have this, if you amass that, think about magazine racks for us that are older in the room when you would go into like a Walgreens or a corner store and there'd be a rack of magazines. And you look at the men's and it was women, muscles, power, money, cars, celebrity. It's just the world telling you, if you get this, you'll have what you need. So what have men done? They've chased after that. Because from birth, we've been told, here's all these boxes to check, right? Start going to elementary school, go to middle school, go to high school, excel in a sport, check, check, check. Go to college and get a vocational job, check, check. Graduate and make this much money, check. Marry a girl and have, 2.5 kids, if you're Catholic, 9.8 or whatever, and just check, 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 check. And so you keep doing this, and then one day men come to the end and there's no more boxes. Sometimes it's in your 30s, sometimes it's in your 50s or later in life, but you come to this realization like, is this all there is? And that's where a lot of men get to. It's like, I have everything I'm supposed to ever have, but I'm still not happy. I'm still not joyful, and I struggle, and I'm having a hard time trying to live as the man I want to be. So men have bought into all that stuff, they've chased it, and you come up empty every single time. When you're thinking and looking at the things in the world that make you happy, to make you joyful, and to make you whole. So what happens? When men aren't finding that stuff that the world tells them that will make them fine, they start to self-medicate. Because they have problems, they have issues. And there's two ways men are going to deal with it. Either in a healthy and wholesome way, I'm going to join a men's group, I'm going to get together with guys, I'm going to open up and share. Or, I'm just going to self-medicate. And that's the world we live in today. Do you know that we live in a world that has the highest rates of all these things I'm going to tell you that we've ever seen? Divorce, pornography abuse, even women, 42% of women now claim to use pornography on a daily basis. You've got men that are, the suicide rate is higher than it's ever been, and the highest portion of that is 23-year-old to 45-year-old men. Men that haven't even started their life yet, and they're already trying to take their life because they're isolated, they're lonely, which they have the highest percentages of that too, thanks to COVID and so many other things. So guys we have all these loneliness and all these issues with men, and what's happening is guys are taking their lives or they're choosing to self-medicate, and they wind up being lost, they wind up losing their families, they wind up killing themselves, whether it's on purpose or an overdose. This is the world we live in, the opioid abuse, all of that stuff, and pornography, the damage that that's doing to people everywhere, and the way that we objectify one another, and all of those things. Because when you shut your laptop, it doesn't stop. You still treat people the way you just treated those people on that screen. It just starts to wire into our brain. So men are caught up in addictions and pornography. Then we have a lack of relationship with Christ. I really believe that 75% or more of the Christians in the world don't have a real relationship with Christ. And usually when I say that at a parish mission, there's about 4 old ladies in the front lining up their purse to let me have it because they take offense at what I said. But the truth is, if we all have the relationship we're called to have with Christ, the world would not be the world that we're in right now. We wouldn't be in the place we're in. Right? There's a lot of Christians, we go and we check the boxes and things, but we don't intimately know Christ. Therefore, we don't know ourselves. And so we're constantly trying to live in these masks and in these facades to be what other people want us to be. So when we don't have a relationship, and you can see it because a lot of men, they're at mass, but why are we really going a lot? This is why I went. When I first got married, I didn't want my wife to yell at me, right? My parents took me to church, so okay, I'll go to church. And 3, I had kids, so maybe, some semblance of morality will rub off on them if I bring them over here and they'll be good people. It's just like, I can't tell you how many men come up to me and say, I spent $250,000 on Catholic education, and my kids aren't Catholic. And they're upset. I'm like, man, it's not an easy bake oven. You don't just shove them in there and they come out Catholic. You have to live it. And so many men, when we're not living this, our families suffer. You got marital issues. Men have been told to suck it up and figure it out. So guys struggling in their marriage are embarrassed. They're ashamed. They don't have real friends in their life. So they try to fix these issues they can't fix by themselves, and marriages are ending every day because of it. And we also live in a culture where I do has now become will see. Right? Let's just try it. It's not a covenant, it's a contract. It can be broken at any moment if I don't decide I don't like you anymore, or you have a behavior I don't really care for. It's not like my wife, who I was lucky enough, and there's two heroes in my story, Jesus and my wife. It's not me. But there's not a lot of that you see anymore where somebody's willing to stay with you through thick and thin. Then we have a lack of authentic friendship. I was at the Columbus Men's Conference last spring. 4,000 men. They've been doing it for 27 years. It's Krista Finnick, myself, and Father Bert Masters from the Cubs. Father went first, and it was my turn, and I got up, and before I spoke, I said, before I start, how many of y'all have real friends in here? 4,000 men. Every hand in the room went up. Everybody's saying, I got friends, I got friends. I said, how many of you have somebody right now in your life you can call and tell them you're struggling with porn? Almost every hand, except for about 5, went down in that room of 4,000 people. Right? We have a confusion of what real friendship is. Give you an example. So I worked in that bar for 23 years. My dad worked there 45. So I basically knew everybody I worked with from the time I was in a diaper till the day I left 8 years ago. I would have told you 10 years ago, 12 years ago, if you asked me who my guys were, I'd have said all these guys I work with. The guys I have beers with after work, the guys I'm in a car with, rolling around making sales calls, those are my guys. I've been going from there 8 years, and I've talked to 2 of them, and it's because I ran into them in the grocery store. When the job went away, the friendship went away. We have such a misunderstanding of what real, authentic friendship is. We think the person that sits next to us in the cubicle that we laugh and joke with and maybe have lunch with every once in a while is our friend. But if they get promoted or moved, oftentimes that relationship's going to end. Many men don't even know what it's like to have an authentic friendship, and so they're walking through life isolated and alone and finding themselves self-medicating and everything else. Then workaholics, you've been told your whole life you are what you can achieve, so get to it. You're worth what you can show for your work. And so we spend our lives until we die trying to amass all this stuff, and then somebody else gets it. Right? You can't take it with you. I've never seen a U-Haul all the way to heaven. Right? Like you can't take that stuff with you. So those are the issues that they're dealing with. And so what does it lead to? This is a poll from the Leadership Journal. So when dad is leading the family, when he's praying, and I don't mean just like, all right, sit her down, let's pray, but actually actively taking a role in the spiritual life of the family, 93% of families, and more importantly children, stay Catholic. When it falls to the woman, and that's not to be like just the women and it's ugly and women aren't useful, it's nothing like that. But when it's just the woman trying to lead on her own, it drops to 17%. And when it's children, it's 3.5%. So we live in a world that tells you just because you have a certain chromosome and you're a man, you're useless, you're toxic, and we don't need you. That right there shows how much a man matters in the world today. You take men out of situations, you get a world where people don't know what sex they are, they're addicted to things, the problem is men have not stood up. Women are working full-time jobs, they've tried to lead the family, and sometimes people bash me and go, all this man hating. I'm not trying to hate on men, this is just what's happened. And I want to explain this to you in a little bit different of a way. So, if you look at husband and wife, or man and woman, when you're a kid, when you're little, or when you have a child that's little, they fall over and they hurt themselves. What do they say? Mommy, 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 mommy hold me, wipe my knee, kiss my bruise, whatever. The mother is the embodiment of the Holy Spirit early on in life. What do they call the Holy Spirit? The Comforter. Right? So what does a child want when they're young? They want mom, they want mom, they want mom. Well, eventually, and my son's 15 and my daughters are about to be 12. Now all of a sudden there's been this shift of where I'm not wanting to be around mom all the time, I want to be around dad. Girls and boys. And the reason is they're starting to realize, man, I'm growing out of this childhood, and eventually I'm going to have to be an adult. And for whatever reason, they start to look at the man to be able to say, okay, what does an adult look like? What is dad like? Because that's an adult. And so these hands are supposed to come together and interlock and build a bridge. But when the man is not engaged in the family, when the man's off working and too busy to be around and all those things and not engaged in the spiritual life, those hands never meet, and we have children falling off in the gap. And that's what's happening in our faith in the church today. That's why when you go to men's events, you see the majority of older men, and there's not always a lot of younger men. You guys have done a good job of getting men here of all ages, but I can tell you, I go to some, and it's like, man, if a bomb hits this room, there's going to be no more men in the church. Like, because all the young men aren't here. Right? Where is everybody? So what have we done about it? We've done what a lot of other people have done. And so the Protestant church had a movement called Promise Keepers. And that's really where men's conferences really started. So they realized the issues with divorce and all these things men were facing. So they had these massive stadium-filled rallies. I know because I went to some of them as a young man. And so in the Catholic Church, we're like, well, that's a good idea. And we have the sacraments too, so it's going to be even better. So we'll have a conference. And they're great. Conferences are needed. They're supposed to be bonfires, right? These bonfires are built to get men to remember what's important and to get fired up and to take a stick on fire back to your parish and start something there. But oftentimes whatever happens is we go for the day, we have great speakers, we get inspired, and like me, I went to a couple of men's conferences, going to change my life, and I was back to doing drugs and drinking 3 hours later. Because the devil and the enemy is always in our ear. And like I said, when we're isolated and alone, we're susceptible to attack all the time. And so many of us go home from those Catholic conferences, and we don't have that community or a place to keep going, to keep working together, to have people to challenge us, to have accountability. So that's what we need to change. And that's what we're focused on here. So the conferences are powerful, but we need to go beyond this and have men not be one-man armies. So this is something we found. I need to update this slide. I keep saying that and I never do. But we've called it's over 532 parishes now. But this is in my area. So I had a young lady that worked for me about 1.5 years ago. She started and I said, I want you to call every parish in the states around us. So Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas, Kentucky, and a little bit of Louisiana. We call Louisiana, we've been doing it for 3 years with all the Catholic churches out there. But I said, I want you to ask them one question. Do you have anything spiritual for men? Overwhelmingly, the answer was no. Only 14% of parishes claim to have something spiritual for men. 86% of parishes had nothing spiritual for men. And I said, well, what about traditional groups like the Knights of Columbus and things like that? And this is no disrespect to any knight in the room. This is the answers I was given. That's a service organization. That's not a spiritual group. Which the priest that started the Knights would roll over his grave because that's not what he intended it to be. In fact, the Knights are trying to come out with core now to reinvigorate these other pillars of spirituality and everything else. But the fact is, these churches saw it that way. And of the 14% that had groups, I said, what do they like? And they go, well, we've got 1 or 2 guys coming to it. So I said, well, can I send out some questions to you? So I said, would you send it out to your men? They said, yes. First question, why don't you go to the men's thing in your parish? And the response was, it's not for me. Second question was, have you ever been? No. Why were men not engaged? Because there is a preconceived notion that ministry to men is boring. That it's for old men and has nothing to do with me. And I'm not trying to insult anybody, but that's the truth. When you dial it down and you talk to guys, they say, it has nothing to do with me, and therefore it's not important. And people vote with their money and they vote with their rear ends, right? So if they're not there, they're trying to tell you it's not important. People are genuinely nice, so they're not going to come up and go, hey, what you're doing, I don't like it, and I'm not going to be there. Nobody's really that mean, unless there's something wrong with them, or they're struggling with something. So most people just simply vanish into the ether. It's like that Homer Simpson meme where he walks in the bushes and he's just gone. That's what happens. So you can see here, you've got diocese. The blue is the number of parishes, and the gold is the number of men's groups. So over there on the second from the end, you see one that has almost 135 parishes and less than 35 men's groups. I didn't put the diocese names because I didn't want to embarrass anybody. But this is a problem. We say, well, what's wrong with the men? And most of our parishes don't have anywhere where men can go and be real and authentic and their need. And there's this push in the church of, we just need small groups, guys meeting in groups of 3 in their backyard or something. And that's great, but what if I'm a man who's struggling? And I'm thinking, where do I go? I want to go to the big, beautiful church with a crucifix, and a cross on the top, because Jesus is supposed to help me. So I go to the front desk and I go, ma'am, is there something for men here? No, we don't have anything. Even Jesus can't help me. Right? And they're gone. Because they don't know that Steve's having a men's group in their backyard down the road. They don't know that Tom's having a group in his backyard down the road. This is why we need ministry to men in our parishes. Because we need places where men can come and find healing. Where they can come and they can talk about the real struggles in their life. Because that's what every man I've ever talked to wants to know. Where is God in my mess? Where is God right now in the fact that I can't pay my bills? Where's God right now in the fact that I can't get along with my wife? Where's God in the fact that I'm a terrible husband? Where's God in the fact that I'm struggling with addictions? Where's God in all of that? And that's what Jesus did. If you look at everywhere he was in the gospel, he asked people, what do you want from me? Do you want to be healed? What do you need? It was a very relational and Jesus didn't show up and go, hey, I'm the Son of God and all y'all need to follow me right now. He didn't do that. He went to individual men and said, what are you looking for? What do you need? Ministry has to be relational. Jesus accompanied 12 men and for 3 years and changed the world. Our church is horrible at accompaniment. I'm just going to tell you that. That's why people love to go to these Protestant churches with the bands and the screens and the coffee shops, because before you get out of the car, somebody's going to, like, you're got one leg out of the car, they're going to have your social security number, your email address, your phone number, your everything. That you be invited to 15 birthday parties and have a free cup of coffee. They're really good at going up and inviting people and being hospitable and accompanying people. In the church more often than not, I travel to so many churches every single month, and I walk in for Mass, and it's people like, oh, our son was very good. And they're just going through the motions. They're just doing things because that's what we've always told we've been done. We've got rules and regulations without relationship in a lot of places, which, if you don't have a relationship, the rules and regulations don't make sense. Right? Why do I care about the 10 Commandments if I don't love God and want to honor Him? So what happens is people come and they do their own thing and they leave, and there's not a lot of things beyond coffee and donuts on a Sunday. And then we wonder why people our churches are dwindling and people aren't attending. And I'm not trying to like bring you down. I'm just telling you this is the state of what's going on out there. And this is why we need men to step up and to start leading. And sometimes we just wait for enough deacons to be around to do it for us, or the priest to be able to do it. But let me tell you something. I was in the Northeast about a month ago. 4 parishes, 1 priest. No deacons, no associate. 1 priest. Running 4 businesses. I hate to talk about church that way, but running a business, seeing to the sick, administering sacraments. He has no time for anything. But oftentimes when we do as Father, we need something from Him. What are you going to do about it? Immediately shut down. Nothing. I have no time. So we're going to talk about that more in a second. We need everyday guys. Like I said, I never thought I'd be standing on a Saturday in the middle of November, or the beginning of November, in the middle of Texas, talking to a bunch of men about Jesus Christ. I never thought I'd be doing that. God had a plan, and all it took was me saying, okay, I'm scared to death, but I'll do it, and then He provided the rest. So let's talk a little bit about what men need. This is what we found over the last few years in our conversations, in my work with the JP Tooling Center, at conferences, speaking with people, through the podcast, people that write in. This is what men are looking for. Men want a place where they can be real. I'm tired of wearing all the masks that I wear places. I'm tired of being this guy at the gym, and this guy at the bar, and this guy with my friends, and this guy with my parents, and this guy with my wife. It's exhausting. Nobody wants to do that. Right? We're these chameleon among men, and it's exhausting. Like, I hate it, and I hated it in my life the way I lived it so long. In our core, we just want to be who we are. And I'm going to tell you something, this is the great denominator, like, I guess that's the right word, common denominator, between all people, are these things. I don't care if you're a man or a woman. I want to be seen, I want to be heard, I want to be loved. To sum all that up, I want to be known. Right? That's the greatest desire of our heart, and that's why we're so afraid to put ourselves out there to people. Because if we do, what if they reject us? What if they don't love us? What if they don't like us? What if we don't fit in? Right? So we just put on these masks and we become what everybody wants. We're about to be in the time of year that I hate Facebook at Christmas. Because all of a sudden, in about a month, you're going to start seeing all these pictures with families dressed in elf outfits. The same outfit, they're all smiling and look at us, we're happy. It's like, there's no way that happened like that. Husband and wives fought for weeks. Kids were taking electronics away from them, all that stuff. Why? So we can show we're fine. But none of us are fine. We all know we're broken. And that's okay. So quit acting like we're all fine and actually use the energy we spend to cover up to actually open up to other people to be better. So men are looking for a place where they can let their guard down. I just want to walk in this room and be with my guys, whether I've had a great week or a horrible week. I want to be able to honestly look at somebody and go, I've had a crappy week and I don't even want to be here right now. Like, I should be able to walk in a room and be able to do that, and to be able to tell the truth. And so we don't have a lot of those places. We have places where you can watch a video for an hour, and then you can pray for 2 seconds, and slap each other on the back and say, see you next week. But if we're not providing an environment where we can open up and share and start to really get into each other's lives, then what we're doing is never going to be effective. We need a place where they can leave the mask at the door, and we need a place where they can build real friendships. Like, I know I've got friends in my life right now that if I called them and I said, the airport's shut down and I have no money for a rental car, one of them would be on their way 10 or 12 hours or whatever it is from Memphis to here driving to pick me up. I have at least 6 friends in my men's group that I know would do that tomorrow or tonight if I ask them to. I know because they walked with me in my struggles with pornography. One of them was even in a national Covenant Eyes commercial with me and wasn't ashamed at all to be in it with me, talking about my struggles with pornography. I've got guys that will call me out if I say something to my wife when they're over, like, hey, you should have done this. Hey man, let's turn the TV off, and we're not going to turn the game back on until you get in there and you apologize to your wife for the way you just talked to her. Men that hold me accountable. We need that. We need a place to find support and virtue. Pursuing virtue instead of vice. Lord knows the world will give you every highway you need to go the wrong direction. But where are we going to go where people can hold us accountable and put us on the right path? Oftentimes, people get so down on themselves when they're struggling in faith, and they go, well, man, I keep hearing about this narrow road, and I'm on the wide road that leads to destruction. That's the trick. The wide road is the easy road. It's the 6-lane highway. That everybody's going straight. There's no turns. There's no bumps. Everything's just following. You're coasting along. The narrow road's the one with the turns and the cliffs and the bumps and you think you're not on the right path, but you actually are because it's hard, right? And so you need to do that with other people. This is why Jesus sent the disciples out 2 by 2, because he knew one might fall and there was another one to pick them up. Always relationship. So we need to find support in pursuing that. And then finally, I don't know about y'all, but if I don't know where I am and I don't know where to start, I want to be around people that do. I want to be people that can reach back and lift me up. And then I can turn around after receiving that gift and reach down and pull somebody else up. That's what this ministry is all about. I do this not because I want to be some known Catholic personality. I do this because Jesus did something for me I could not do for myself. And I know he can do it for other people. And so I want to do everything I can to pass on the gift that I've been given. That's what this is about. It's not being some heady theological thing. It's not about that. It's about caring about other people and putting them first in your life. So why don't these exist? Like I said, the priest is too busy. I'd love to. And oftentimes, what do? Father, we need something for men. Well, what is he here? You're trying to put something else on me. I don't have time, so therefore we're not going to have it. I tell people when you're going to approach your priest, you need to go to him like this. Father, I've noticed we have a lack of men living in faith in our parish. I realize that we've got a whole world where men are going the opposite direction from Jesus Christ. I want to be part of the solution. I don't know everything I'm doing, but I've got a structure, if you're working with me or somebody else, that we can implement. I just want your blessing. I'm not asking you to do it. I want this, and I want to assemble some people to help me, because I know that you need this, we need this in the parish, and we want to be the person that does it. Most things get rejected by a priest because they assume you're asking them to run it. The reason even all this exists is I went to my pastor and he had all this stuff on his desk from Ascension, all these programs, and I said, what makes you want to do any of this? He said 3 things. 1, it's easy to understand. 2, it's easy to implement. 3, I don't have to do it myself. You want to approach your pastor, get him to do something, you use that same methodology to talk to him. Then shame. Guys want something, I know. I went to this conference, I went to this retreat, and man, this guy spoke, and I'm fired up, but I can't do anything. What can God do with me? Right? I'm a sinner and I still struggle with porn, or I'm angry, or I drink too much, or I don't know my faith. I'm going to stick out like a sore thumb. Right? Who's going to listen to me? I was all of those things. But it wasn't about me, it's what God could do through me. So this is the reason they don't exist, is guys feel the call, but they convince themselves that they're not worthy of it. And then 3, men are unequipped. I know guys that can quote the Summa in their sleep, but they don't know how to run men through. Right? Where do I start? So that's what we're trying to do to help around the country. What are we doing about it? We're trying to imitate St. Paul. For so long in the church, ministry to women, to youth groups, to men, it's been, oh, you have a need? Here's a DVD set, good luck. Right? Here's a stream, here's content, good luck. But meanwhile, no one actually shows anybody how to lead. Right? It's like, just hit play, baby. Just put me on a video for 12 months and I'll do the work for you. And while those things are helpful, if we're not learning to lead men, what happens when you turn the video off? How are you answering questions? How are you walking with people? How are you directing people? This is why we need to build up leaders. This is the accompaniment. It starts with accompanying leaders, so leaders can accompany others. And so, you see this verse in Hebrews, which some attribute to Paul and some don't. They still argue about it. But he says, let us consider how to stir up one another to love good works. Love and good works, not neglecting to meet together as the habit of some, but encouraging one another. Our vision is that every Catholic man is involved in a faith-filled community in their parish that inspires them to greater virtue and leads them into a deeper relationship with Jesus Christ and other men. How do we do that? By putting boots on the ground. By coming and doing things like this, coming to you, offering our services to help, and going to parishes as well, to stir up hearts, give men a structure and a guide, and a fruitful men's ministry. You're going to hear me talk about all the details of this in the next few minutes. Never once are you going to hear me say you're just a guy in the youth group. Here you got to wear our logo, you got to subscribe to our stuff, and here's the monthly or the yearly fee. There's none of that. It's not my place to own anything. Right? It's not my place to bring anything. My hope is we give you a structure and a leadership model that can be implemented anywhere, and that you're going to do what so many other groups have done, and we're the sons of St. Joseph. We're forged. We're men standing on our head praying the rosary. Whatever you want to call yourself. It doesn't matter. But it's your identity in your parish. And that's why it works, because it fits everywhere. Whether you're in a small, rural parish or you're in an urban, large parish, you can implement the things I'm going to share with you. So what are we doing about it? Two things. We either do things like this, where we come in and do a retreat and do a quicker kind of version of the training, or we will go into parishes and work with individual parishes. I will come to your parish and do 3 different things. So let's just say we're talking about the parish. And a priest calls right now. A deacon says, John, I'm going to stand up because I can't wait anymore. I can't hold it in. I want you to come to my parish. So if he did that, I'd say, all right, well, let's look at a date. And let's get final permission from the priest. Okay, we've done that. We picked this date, X, whatever. What's next? Find me 6 to 8 men that want to help lead a men's group. You come back to me with those men and get them on a Zoom call with me. And we'll have as many Zoom calls as we need before we ever hit the ground in the parish to teach them the structure, to teach them how to lead, to put them in the right place based on their gifting, not just going, oh, you said yes, so you sweep the floor and the guy hates service. Right? Like, they're never going to last because they're doing something that doesn't speak to their heart. Some people think, like, if I go to a soup kitchen and I don't want to be here, then I'm a terrible person. What that is God telling you that that's not how he made you to serve him. Right? It's okay to go and serve that, but if you really don't find yourself not liking it, then there's probably a hint from God that he made you. You have different gifts and he wants you to follow a different path in order to serve him. Right? So what we do is we put guys in the right place. We train them, and then we show up and we give a 3-talk parish mission. My conversion story, which you heard earlier, usually that's a Friday and Saturday. We have a time of fellowship afterwards for the men and women and everybody in the parish. Women are the best at putting their elbows in their husband's ribs and saying, you need to be a part of this. So we invite them, but also the messaging speaks to everyone. Then we give a talk on identity. We give a 3rd talk on a relationship with Jesus Christ. Then we invite them into another training session like this in the afternoon to finalize their training. But the whole time leading up to it, we not only help them with the structure and everything else, we give them a 6-month plan of how to build the events that go in the structure and how to have them at the ready for when I hit the ground on Saturday and leave. They've got the plan that starts 2 or 3 days later, and there's no lag time, and the group's off and running. When we do that, we've had anywhere between 100 men and 10 men meeting a week where there was nothing before. They're still meeting 2 or 3 years later using this structure because it's not based on content. You can substitute. You're a that man as you group, and you love that man as you. You can do it on your formation night we're going to talk about in a second. It doesn't matter what you do. You find what works for you and you utilize these pillars we're going to talk about. And then finally, sustaining. I do not want to go somewhere and accept a check and say, hey, good luck, guys. Hope you do well with it. I'm always open to phone calls, emails. I talked to parishes we helped 2 years ago that'll call and go, hey man, we've been kicking this around. What do you think? I'm not done with you the moment that we're like done on the schedule. When you guys need help, we're here for you. And we've invested several $1,000s on the back end of our website where I've created 8 to 10 minute videos about leadership. And like, what are you going to run into as a leader? How do you get somebody to be open up? How do you lead with a listening ear? How do you deal with somebody that's oversharing without running them off and running the rest of your group off? How do you deal with that in a way that keeps everybody coming to the group? These are things that no one talks about, but you're going to experience when you're leading a group. So let's talk about what's included, and I'll probably pull up the training guide as well too to go through it a little bit. This is a leadership team from McDonough, Georgia. This isn't the group, this is the leadership team. The deacon's the one they called. I told him to assemble a team. He assembled all those men. I believe there's 12 of them. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I was wrong. 10 at that time. They eventually got to 16. They were one of the first ones we did. We went and did the mission. They had nothing there for men. They didn't even have Knights of Columbus. They had like some St. Vincent de Paul thing that the guys would do every week in service or every other week. But they didn't really have an organized group. It was just whoever showed up to that. So now those guys still have 43 men that meet on a weekly basis here 3.5 years later, or whatever it's been. So we gave them the purpose, what do men need, what are men looking for. We taught them how to minister to what men are actually needing and looking for out there. The world is full of silent sufferers. Everybody's smiling and everybody's got something going on inside. How do we minister to those folks? Then we gave them this. This is the structure. And people look at this and go, this is it. This is really simple. This really works. We overcomplicate things. We can just do what Jesus did and it works. So I told you I went to adoration and he gave me these 4 things. These are them: formation, worship, service, and fellowship. So all of a sudden I started realizing, man, our group numbers had started dwindling. Men weren't living the faith because basically we were talking about things, but we never put things into practice. Right? When did we ever do them? It was a good idea on Wednesday night, but when did we actually live it out the rest of the week? So I met with my guys, and I'm going to be really honest with you right now. I led my group for 5 years, and I disliked almost everybody in it. Do y'all believe that or not? I'm asking you. It's the truth, I did. I disliked everybody in it for this reason. No one helped me. I was doing everything. If I didn't go, the group didn't happen. If we were doing it, all we were doing was formation. If I didn't spend time to find the video or something, we had nothing to do. All of it fell on me, even though we had 45, 50 men coming a week. And I get so mad because I'm still working at Napa, and I get distracted, and I go, oh man, it's Wednesday, and it's an hour before we meet, and I have no idea what we're doing. So I prayed, Father Mike Smith, save me, and I'd go try to find 3 8-minute Ascension Press videos, and then I'd sit there and go, well, which ones, what should I use, And I'd pick one, I'd go and show it, and some guy would be like, I didn't really like that video, and I wanted to murder him. Like, I wanted to go, like, really? I didn't realize it because you helped me so much to even figure out what we're doing tonight. And so I was angry all the time, and I wanted to quit so many times. I wanted to quit. I was like, this isn't right. I'm not only one doing anything. And so this is how we always have to look at things from other people's perspective. So when this came out, I said, I'm going to call the guys in my group and tell them I can't do this anymore. The ministry had taken off. I was traveling all the time. So I called him, I said, let's go to pizza. The same place I went with the guy that asked me to start the group. So I'm sitting there with 4 or 5 guys. One of them's the big bearded guy in the middle that looks like Santa Claus smiling. And then 3 or 4 other guys and then our associate pastor. And I said, guys, look, I can't do this anymore. If y'all want to continue meeting this group and it really matters to you, you got to start doing something. And they looked at me and said, what are we going to do? All we do is formation, and you're the only one that knows how to do that. That's why we've never been able to help you. And I went, oh man. Here I am, I've been mad all these years. And I never thought the reason why they couldn't help. They didn't know how to form. They didn't know how to lead people in the only singular way we were trying to lead people. So I said, well, let me tell you what Jesus just gave me. And I said, here we go. Formation, worship, fellowship, and service. We're going to do these 4 different things, and on the 4 nights, we're already meeting a month. Immediately, my buddy in the middle, the big guy looks like Santa Claus, Nick, he goes, wait a minute. There's a night about having fun? I love having fun. I'll run that night. My buddy Victor on my podcast, he loves service. He gets children out of broken homes into better places. He said, I have a life of service I live every day. I love service. I'll build the service nights for us, and I'll put those together. And then David, he said, I'm a sacristan. I love the liturgy. I'll help get the priests to rotate every month, and we'll have a worship night, a confession, adoration, and mass. And then they looked at me and said, you love formation. You keep doing that. All of a sudden, we had 4 different nights. And we had guys that were willing to run the nights, and it didn't just fall on me, we had a team. Then all of a sudden, when we told everybody, we had other guys stayed up and go, I'll help Nick, I'll help Victor, I'll help David, I'll help John. So next thing you know, if I can't be there on formation night, so-and-so could, if my wife was sick, if my kids needed something, or had a ball game, if I had to work late, whatever happened, like there was somebody else there, I had an understudy. So we had a team. So we started to put that into place, and then the pillars started becoming so transformational for all of us. So I want to go through them. Formation is what we were doing in the beginning. It's still showing up and talking about where we struggle. Where's God in our mess? Right now in our group, I believe y'all had him before, Matthew Leonard. He's a very good friend of mine, great evangelist. He's got the science of sainthood, and he's made group packs for men's groups or for women's groups or anybody's groups. He's got these things where you can buy them for $40. The entire group can use it for one price, with downloadable guides and all this stuff, so you don't have to pay all this for books. And then there are 8 to 10 minute videos that are shot well and take you through some hard theological things, but Matthew's very gifted at bringing them into the everyday guy. So personally, we've been going through the total abandonment to the will of God, and it's been one of the greatest things I've ever done in my life. I realized how much I've not surrendered to God, how much more there is to surrender, how easy it is to surrender in the easy stuff, how hard it is in the difficulties. It's been a great gift that our men have been, we've used in our group to talk about obedience and all this stuff all the time. And the beauty is we only have one formation night. That video series had 10 videos. For the last 10 months, we've been going through the same series. But it's not boring because he's not harping on the same things. He's talking about this one subject matter in pieces. So you're going from A to Z. You're not going, well, this week we're going to talk an hour about porn, and next week we're going to talk about an hour about anger, and next week an hour about pride. Nobody can lick those things in an hour. It takes 21 days to build a habit, right? So you've got to start to live these things and give them time to breathe in your life. So that's what we're doing, is we use that formation, and then we talk about that one formation night all month long through our communications. We build a GroupMe app, which is free, and we put all of our members in it. So we can put the dates and locations of where we're going to meet on these different nights. We can invite other people. We can pray together. Guys can talk about successes and failures. I got put on there this morning, guys, I'm struggling with porn. Can somebody please call me this morning? And somebody said, I'm on it. I'm calling you right now. So that we can stay in constant communication with each other, not just the one night a month thing. So that's formation. You just get together and you start talking about where's God in this. And it's the great equalizer. Because you see a lot of groups are either older men or younger men. There's not a lot that are mixed really well between the two. And it's because young men feel like, well, if I go in there, these guys are going to feel like I haven't lived long enough to have an opinion. And then they're going to think these kids won't listen to anything. So there's this natural butting of heads. You're in this different point of life. But when the basis of your relationship is being real with one another and realizing that if you're 82 years old and struggling with porn and I'm 22 and struggling with porn, we're struggling with the same things. Right? Even people that, a guy came up to me at a men's conference and he was dressed like G.K. Chesterton, like all tight. And, you know, and he walked up and it was very, like, I don't understand why people are affected by what you say and do. It seems very rudimentary and very boring. I was like, well, thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to tell me that. Like, how kind of you. But I also looked at him and I was like, so you don't struggle with porn? And he got red in the face and he turned around and walked off. Doesn't matter how much you know. We all struggle with the same things. So, that formation night is a great equalizer. It's a way to come together and talk about what we're dealing with, and then find the answers in Scripture through the smaller content. Rick and I were talking about this for 30 minutes yesterday. If you're going to have a video, make it less than 15 minutes so you can give guys time to actually share. Because that's what people really want to do, is to show up and learn from one another. Worship is what it sounds like. We have two priests, they rotate. Both of them do a form of adoration. One does a healing holy hour, one does a regular adoration. But then we have confession and Mass. So we have an opportunity every month for guys to go adore the Lord, receive the Eucharist outside of Sunday, and confess, which a lot of men don't do without support, without prodding, right? So we have that night, and it's multifaceted. So many men don't have a good relationship with the priest because he's on a pedestal and he's going to see right through me. And so the priest is at a distance. Yes, sir, Father. Thank you, Father. Move along, Father. Now the priest can come on that night and he can preach homilies that are directed to men. Because a lot of priests want to talk about pornography and all that stuff. I keep harping on that, but that's a common denominator for a lot of us. And so they want to talk about that stuff in a regular Mass, but they can't because they'll get called on the carpet by the bishop. I know several priests have been told, don't ever speak about that in a public Mass again with both genders. Because people complain and embarrass them. Their kids were in there. They didn't want them to hear that. So now he can come and he can preach to men. And men are standing shoulder to shoulder and seeing that it's not weird to worship together. Right? They're growing this relationship with the priest. Then you have service. Right? Living our faith together through acts of service. So this picture here is us at Catholic Charities. Now this is only probably a quarter of our group because we always forget to take a picture until everybody's pretty much gone. But you can see there's 70-year-old guys, there's 60-year-old guys, there's guys in their 20s. That's my son Jacob on the right. The sign's leaning down like that. I told you didn't get the height, right? So he's on that end, and that's my buddy's daughter and son. And on that night, we brought our kids because we were boxing up food. And we sat there on an assembly line, and I had a pal on each side, and I'm throwing rice and beans somebody else is throwing their stuff, and the whole time we're talking to each other. What do you do for a living? What do you like? Who's your favorite sports team? What do who do you hang out with? All that kind of stuff. You start to grow in that relationship in that way. We've made over 5,000 sandwiches for the soup kitchen in the last year in downtown Memphis. I went and bought $200 worth of peanut butter every single time, bread in Ziploc bags. People threw in $10 and we made 5,000 sandwiches this year. We've been to the Dorothy Day House most recently and painted the rooms and bolted the furniture to the wall so children from battered families don't pull it over on themselves, trying to make it nicer for them. We've been to Catholic nursing homes and taken ice cream and fed people that have nobody to visit them, right? And been with them and spent time with them. There's so many things you could do. It's all these things are limitless. You just have these nights and you plug in what works for you. That's why I said that means you could work for your formation. Roll men. You could use our podcast. You could use Matthew's stuff. And you start plugging all this in. Then finally, fellowship. There's this notion that to have fun in your faith is just not supposed to happen, right? That, no, you're supposed to be serious and you're always supposed to be talking about, the catechism or whatever. Men need to have fellowship with one another. So we go through Axis, we go to Grizzlies games, we go to the gun range, we've had cookouts, we've been bowling, we've been in escape rooms, we've done all kind of stuff together. Just being together, cigars and bourbon in people's backyards. It's about getting together and living the wholeness of a man. This is what people enjoy about seeing The Chosen. They're seeing all these men living out all their different parts of their personalities and how they're serving the Lord. So, I'm a big fisherman. I'm not very good at it, but I like to waste money and time doing it. And I'm going to tell you a quick story, and then I'll flip to answer any questions you have and jumping into the leadership guide for a minute. I know it's been a long day, so I want to be wary of that. But every time I go fishing with my son, I take 5 or 6 poles, and they all have a different bait on them. A rattle trap, a Texas rig, Carolina rig, crankbait, top water, whatever. And so I always get up, I've got my pole string and ready to go. He gets up 2 minutes before we're about to go, bed ahead, everything else, one eye open, grabs one pole, and gets in the boat, or gets in the truck. And then we go fish, and all he does is complain about how he doesn't catch anything all day long. Well, I throw whatever I'm throwing for the first 30 minutes, they don't bite, I switch, until I find what they're biting. And then I start catching fish. And Jacob's always mad. I'm like, well, you gotta fish with more than one thing. How often has men's ministry been one-dimensional in our faith? It's service and that's it. It's a Bible study and that's it. It's a deacon or a priest giving a talk and that's it. It's lecture divina and that's it. It's a video series and that's it. And like I said, men vote. Even if they've never been, that doesn't seem like it's for me. We have to meet men where they are. Right? We have to meet men where they are. And so the story I want to tell you really quickly is there's a guy in my parish named Mike, and he's been coaching football at school for 20 years. 10 of those years, he hasn't even had any kids there. So he's still showing up and coaching. He takes a week off in the summer, and we've got humidity and heat like y'all do here in Memphis. It's really, really disgusting in June. But we take off a week, and he leads the whole thing, dealing with the police, and the fire department, and running electrical, and all that stuff, to have the second largest festival in Memphis behind the Barbecue Fest. And it brings in anywhere between 150,000 and 350,000, depending on the weather in the year. He'll do all of that, but he never went to Mass, he never did anything spiritual, never was in men's groups or anything. And so when I sat down at dinner with all my guys and said, all right, this is the 4 pillars, and they were in, they said, well, we got one Wednesday left in the month. What do you want to do? Or do you want to wait until next month to start? I said, no, the heck with it. Let's get some burgers and dogs, and let's go in the green space in the parking lot and start cooking some burgers and hot dogs and all that stuff. And then we'll be able to, we'll just hang out and see how a fellowship night goes. Well, I didn't even think about the practice had started, football practice. So I started rolling smoke, and there's all these dads leaning against the fence, 11 back here, sleeping their kids, and yelling at the coach because they're not playing their kids enough and all that stuff. Well, the smoke starts going over there, and then all these dads start coming over and going, what are y'all doing? I said, well, this is our spiritual group. Spiritual group, y'all listen to Led Zeppelin and playing cornhole and eating hamburgers, drinking beer. Yeah, we like to do that too. So they come in and they start hanging out. Well, practice gets over and Mike starts walking up. And he said, what's going on, John? What are all these dads doing over here? They're usually over here. I need to talk to them about stuff. I said, well, come on in, man. You can talk to them in here. He goes, what are you doing? Same thing, Mike. It's our spiritual group. Spiritual group? I thought y'all were a bunch of Bible-beating weirdo Jesus freaks that just cried and talked about your feelings. I said, well, you locked out. That's their night. Come on in and get a hammer. So he comes in and he starts playing cornhole, and all he was going to do was go in the football room, and he's coaching 5th and 6th grade football. He's drawing up plays, which means drinking Busch Light until his wife tells him to come home, right? That's what's really going on. That's what was happening. So, because I've been in that locker room. But, so he comes out there, he starts having fun, and he comes up to me about the middle of the way, and he goes, man, I didn't know y'all did stuff like this, and I didn't know Nick came, and I didn't know David came, I didn't know Steve and Bill were part of this. I said, yeah, we do stuff like this all the time. And he goes, well, what do you do next? I said, we have a service night. We're going to go to LeBonner Children's Hospital. It's different than St. Jude. Everything at St. Jude's paid for. So if you're there for 2 years, you don't pay for a thing. LeBonner is more of a regular illness hospital for children, not cancer, and everything costs. So there was a ministry that was serving food. Once a month they provided the food, they needed ministries to serve it to certain floors. So we had a guy in our group that volunteered there. He told us about it. We said, we'll do that for service. So we go down to LeBonner, and they've got Corky's barbecue and all this stuff, and we're serving the parents, and they're coming to get it. Well, there was a lot left over, and the nurses said, box it up and take it up to the next floor and knock on doors and see if anybody wants food. So I grab Father, and he points at Mike. He's like, get him. So we grab Mike, and we go to the next floor. I just hit 8. I have no idea where we're going in the hospital. The door opens up, and it's the NICU. It's the intensive care unit for the babies. So I don't even know if we're supposed to get off the elevator because of germs and everything else. So I'm kind of standing there, and the nurse goes, is that food? Yeah. She goes, come on, just knock on doors and give it to anybody needs it. So we knock on the first door, and this African-American lady opens the door. It was about big around as a toothpick, hair stuck everywhere, bags under her eyes. You can see the child behind her in the unit. And I said, ma'am, would you like something to eat? And she started crying. She said, I have no one. I've been here for 6 days. I can't afford the food. I haven't eaten in all those days. The nurses just keep bringing me saltines because it's against hospital policy to feed me without, if I don't have any money, you can't just bring me food. It's a Methodist hospital. You'd think they would be charitable, but they weren't allowing it. And so she said there is no husband. Basically, she was a prostitute. And she said, I have no one. And so she said, I would love something to eat. So Father starts blessing everything, the forks, the knives, the coats, like everything. And I give it to Mike. Mike's 6'2", 250 pounds, ex-football player, current fireman. He goes in there, and it seems like he's in there for an hour. It was probably only a minute and a half. But he comes out of that room, and he buries his head in my chest, and he starts sobbing. And he said, I've never done anything like this in my life. He said, what do you do next? I said, Mike, we got a worship night. He goes, no, not doing that. Because Mike would build you a baseball dugout in a day if you had a cooler beer, but he never went to mass. He never did anything spiritual. I said, Mike, come on, man. It's the same guys we threw cornhole with, and the same guys we just served these wonderful people with. What are you afraid of? I'm not afraid of anything. Prove it. Come meet me next Wednesday night. So I prayed. I'm sitting there in adoration, and confession's going on, and adoration's almost over. I can see there's one person left in the confessional line. I'm going, dang it, come on. Next thing you know, the side door of the church opens up, and I see his eye peek in. I'm like, get in here. So he comes, he sits down. I'm like, the confessional's still open. Oh, no, you're lucky I'm even here. So I browbeat a little bit more, and he went to confession. Came out of there crying. Father transitions from adoration into Mass. Mike goes up, receives the Lord in the Eucharist. After Mass, he's sobbing like a baby, and he told me it's the first time he'd been to Mass or gone to confession in 16 years. He looked at me, he said, what do you do next? I said, well, Mike, you're out of options. Grab your Kleenex and join us next Wednesday night. We're going to cry and talk about our feelings. He goes, oh, man, I'll be there. So he showed up the next week, and it wasn't just him. He brought his 24-year-old son that just had a baby out of wedlock and didn't go to church either. That's the power of what this will do. Never once have you heard me talk about content or some leadership manual where you got to do this in 2 minutes and this in 6 minutes. Guys, we need to trust that the Holy Spirit's going to be there to lead us. We need to trust that God's given us gifts and He's given us other people in our lives that we can change the lives of other men alongside in our parishes. All we need is a starting place. This is what this is. This is why I don't require people to pay me so much a month to be in our system. And no, just take the gifts that God gave me because they were freely given, freely receive them, and go and work them in your parish and watch what will happen. We had nothing for women. We had nothing for youth. My wife, who's the biggest introvert in the world, now runs a women's group using this same pillar model. And it has 40 women meeting a week in our parish. We had no youth group. We've got over 55 kids meeting every Sunday now, and they all said, Mom has something, Dad has something, I want something. But all this started with the men. This is what we do. We can help you in your parishes. We're pairing up with dioceses all the time. I'm constantly doing leadership summits. But really, when this works the most effectively is when we have things like this. People say, I want to do something like that in my parish. You reach out to us, and we'll start working alongside you to build a group, but then to put you right back into this network here with the Catholic Brothers for Christ. Because even when we have our own group, we still need the larger whole. We're the body of Christ. This is where people get the relationship with Jesus wrong. They go, well, me and Jesus are going to head off into the tulips, and it's just me and him. No, it's not. You find out who you are, inform yourself of who Jesus is so he can inform you of who you are, so you can insert yourself back into the body of Christ. Because without members, all of our members, we don't function properly. My daughters love to play with dominoes, and I walked to the house one day and they had dominoes everywhere. It must have taken them 3 hours to lay them all out. And when I walked in, they said, Daddy, we're about to push them over and watch them all fall down. And so I walked over in the middle and I picked one up, and they go, hey, what are you doing? That took us forever. Now they're not all going to fall. And I said, you're right. This is you. This is you. If you don't live your faith, if you don't become the person that God's calling you to be, look how many people behind you may never be touched, may never be moved, may never come to know the Lord. That's how important you are. And gentlemen, that's the same challenge I give you today. Right? It's the same challenge I give you today. You may be sitting here all day going, I've been to these things, and this is awesome, but what can I really do? You can go back to your parish and you can find other men to raise up a men's group and make it whatever it is the Lord's calling it to be. But now you got somebody who wants to, this is what I want to do with my life. I don't care if I ever speak publicly again. I would rather go and help parishes build groups where I know men can find healing and restoration and hope. Because that's what the world needs more than anything. And how many wives are praying silently in their room every day that their husband will reach out for help, that their husband will have a group of men that can be around that are good influence. This is what we need in our parishes. And I'm willing to help you do it. So we've got all kind of people we've worked with. This is a DRE in Las Vegas, so literally in the middle of Sin City. We went right in the middle of it. He said it was just a sleeping giant had awakened. We currently now have an active and thriving men's group of men whose hearts are on fire to serve God in our parish community. I hear story after story from men in our parish talk about how much they long for a community they could grow in, and now that they have it, they're overflowing with gratitude. I can't stress enough how important this ministry has been for our parish, and we're recommend it to anybody. You've got several different people here from different places, deacons, lay people. Group has got 46 men meeting tonight in Jacksonville. They had 10 guys doing a rosary, 10 guys doing service stuff, and like 5 doing fellowship stuff. And we wrangled it all together, let the men that were already leading those things lead the pillars, and now they got 46 men meeting a week. This is the guy out of Nashville that I help. You recognize that guy? He's coming next year in the spring. And he talks about what he believes in our work. I know you know this guy. But he talks about the need for men's ministry and for bringing us in to help you. So we've got the support of great people like that. And this is really what it looks like. If you were to call me next week and you can get a card at the table and go to our website and click a button and set up a time to talk to me. You're not going to get anybody else, you're going to get me. 2 reasons. 1, there is no one else. 2, I want to talk to everybody that calls, and sometimes that's my downfall because I just don't want to I want to be there for everybody. So we have the initial call and assessment. So we'll go through it with you and say, okay, what is your parish like? Do you have something? Are you trying to revitalize something? Are you starting from the ground up? We'll assess that. If you're not the deacon or the priest or the DRE, we got to go to whoever's in charge, because I don't want to show up at your parish and Father go, what's going on? That's the last thing I want. So we're going to talk to him, we'll pick a date, and then we'll create leadership. So once we've done that and it's a go, we say, all right, go find the 6 to 8 men or 10 to 12, or how many you can find. Then we start the training. So we'll have as many Zoom calls as necessary to do that for you, and then to train the leaders. Then when we do, we start talking about the purpose, the structure, the process. We help them plan ahead by building 3 to 6 months worth of activities that start afterwards. So what are you going to fill in these pillars? Setting up their group me apps, doing all of that. Then I've got Derek, he's my marketing and operations guy. So he builds all the flyers, the social media stuff. He's a professional marketer. He used to work for Exodus 90. So it's beautiful. The stuff I made for y'all was like my handwritten stuff. I tried to do the best I could. Y'all like, we'll make our own things. But I'm not good at that stuff. But he is. So we'll make all the posters. I'll make promo videos, do everything we can to help you build a successful parish mission with lots of people. And then the parish mission is what casts the net and gets the men to go, this is different and I want to be a part of it. Every single time we do this, we'll have, depending on the size of the parish, a ton of men sign up and join the group just from coming to the mission. And oftentimes they find leaders from the missions that stand up and say, I want to help. And then we're here to follow up and connect with you. So I hope this doesn't seem like a sales pitch to you. I'm just trying to show you that like this isn't about content. This isn't about the way the ministry's always been done. I believe we're always going to struggle until people have a belief in themselves that they can lead other men, that they have gifts that God wants to use, and that someone gives them a leg up and a helping hand to get started. That's what we're trying to do. I don't want to own anything. I want to work with the Catholic Men's Leadership Alliance. I want to work with y'all. I want to work with that men as you, and I have. I've been on their stuff. But this is what we have. I have leadership guides. If anybody's interested, I can send one to you. It'll walk you through everything. It gives you examples for every one of the nights. It talks about why we do those nights and where we saw Jesus doing it in Scripture and things like that. It talks about the role of clergy. So I'll talk about that really quickly. Men, our priests need us. I have the extreme privilege to pray with priests all the time. In fact, yesterday in my hotel room, I was praying with a CFR that had been accused of a relationship with a sister that didn't happen, and he called me breaking down crying and asking for prayers. He'd encouraged this woman, and she wrote a letter saying that it was inappropriate, that he had told her that everything was going to be all right. I don't know what the issue was with her or whatever, but now he's got a letter, and he's facing all this stuff, and his dad, who has Parkinson's, just found out he has blood cancer, and he called me yesterday in tears and said, can we pray together? I pray with priests all the time, and I hear, you think we have brokenness, the struggles they have with pornography, the isolation, the loneliness. I've had priests tell me they don't want to go in the rectory because the devil comes for them in there. That they look at their phone on Facebook and see, especially the ones from other countries, they see the home they left and their brothers and sisters that had families and they chose to go in the priesthood and they don't feel like they're being utilized or whatever, and so they're sitting there suffering. Our priests need a place where they can come into and just be men. Right? They're intrinsically different. They took vows, they can transubstantiate, you and I can't. They're different than us. But at the same basic level, they still struggle with the same things. The priests in our group, they come in and pop their collar off sometime and say, I'm your father and your brother, to quote St. Augustine, right? And they just say, I'm here in case you say something heretical or need confession, but I'm also here because I need you too. I need brothers. I need men I can share my life with. So you need the priest, obviously, to do the things, or the deacons to do the things on the nights, on the worship nights. But the other nights should be a time where they can come together and be built up. Right? We need to do more than drop a casserole off at our priest's house, right? We need to be friends with them and have a relationship with them. They need healing as much as we do. So there's that. And then promotion and engagement, all of it's covered in the leadership guide. I'm happy to email it to you, Kyle, if you want to email it out to all the people that were here today, or if you guys want it individually. But my hope today is that, one, you've seen that God can do anything with anybody. Right? Like, by no means should I be standing up in front of you today except for the grace of God. That's it. His mercy, His plan. And the only thing I've done is say, okay, God, I'm scared to death, but I'll keep doing it. Right? There's a lot of months where I don't know how we're going to pay the bills in the ministry, but I keep showing up, and God will send some $4,000 check from somebody I never met in the mail one day. And it'll be exactly what I need to pay the bills that month. God provides the way. We simply just have to believe that He is who He says He is, and that we can be who He says we are. So, man, I'm willing to help any one of you. I've brought on another evangelist. He's going to start doing things. I'm going to raise the money to be able to support it, but he's going to start in 2025. Paul George, you may have heard of him. He's been involved in Life Team. He's written books like Holy Grit and Rethinking Happiness. He's been on the JP2 Healing Center's board for years. He went to Franciscan, great evangelist. He's going to come on and start doing some of these for me alongside me so we can reach more places. But men, I just invite you, if the Lord's put a call in your life to lead other men, if you want to get something started, if you want to revitalize something, reach out to me. Don't be shy. Take that card, go to the website, schedule a call, and then you can literally go to my schedule, pick a time convenient for you. We'll have a Zoom, and we'll work through all of this and figure out how we can help you. Okay? That's all I want to do is help you from this way forward, and then put you right back into this wonderful group of men so that their network grows and grows and grows. You can lean on each other. Hey, what are y'all doing in your formation? What do y'all do for your worship? What do you do here so we can work together? So with that, man, I'm just going to open it up to questions. We've got 27 minutes left till 3. We don't have to stay the whole time. It's up to y'all, but I just wanted to, who's got questions? And there's not a dumb question. You can ask it to anyone.
Questions through the microphone, raise your hand.
I didn't do that good of a job. There's got to be a question here somewhere.
How tall are you?
6'8". I was when I left this morning. I don't know beyond that.
How do we help attract younger men?
Yeah. Well, that's exactly why we started doing. He asked, how do we attract younger men? So, like I was saying in the beginning, you have to do stuff that attracts them, right? Younger men, they want formation. They want times that they can go and do things. And you also have to build it in times of work for them. I'll give you an example. In Memphis, when I started our group, the guys that ran the conference for, at that time, right, 15 years, I'd never heard of them. I knew there was the conference, of course, but I didn't know they had their own men's ministry, 501c and all that. They were called the Fishers of Men. So we're meeting on our second or third meeting, and this guy shows up at the door, this older gentleman, and he says, hey, my name's Bill. I'm with the Fishers of Men. Here's everything you need to run your men's group. It was an 8-year Crossing the Gold DVD set, a binder. And he said, here you go. And I said, hi, I'm John. Who are you, and how did you find me, and all that stuff. We started talking, and he says, well, we've been doing this forever, and you need to come to our group, and you need to see how to run a men's group properly, because you don't know what you're doing. I said, okay. So,
Hey, John.
yes.
Our group started with that same crossing the goal.
Yeah, I mean, I love Danny Abramowitz. He's a great guy, Curtis, all those guys. But that's what he handed me. And so they asked me, he said, why don't you come to our group? I said, well, what does it mean? He goes, Tuesday mornings at 6:15 in the morning. I said, I can't do that. My wife goes to work at 5:30 in the morning, and I've got to take kids to school, and I'm getting ready to work. And he goes, oh, you can make it work, just figure it out. So I go home. So one, he ignored what I said, right? Your concerns don't matter, right? Just suck it up and be here anyway. So I felt like no one listened, no one heard me, no one cared. So anyone who's treated like that is probably not going to go, I really want to be a part of that. Right from the get-go, that's the way you're not heard. So I go home and I said, Angela, I really need to go to this thing. She goes, all right, you know it's hard for me to change my schedule. The kids' homework and all that stuff's going to be harder now, so I'm not going to get home till later, but I'll do it. So I go. They had mass, then they went into a room and they had donuts and all that stuff. Somebody played the guitar for a minute, and then we watched 25 minutes of an hour-long video, had announcements, and then by the time they looked and said, y'all get in little groups. Turn your chairs around and get groups of 4 or 5. By the time we got up and turned their chairs around, they flicked the lights and basically was saying it's time to go to work or go home. So no one got to share. They came up to me. I said, what do you think? What did you think about it? I said, well, it seems nice. I didn't really get to talk to anybody, but, you know, it seems like a nice group of men. But to be honest with you, I'm the youngest guy in here, about 20 years. And he said, well, we want younger men. I said, well, you should probably do it at night or something when it's a little bit easier for men to be here. They go, we don't want to do that. I said, well, then you don't want younger men. Like, just admit it. Like, there's nothing wrong. If what's important to you is your comfortability in running the ministry, then you're not ever going to get the people you want. You've got to be able to look at what they want, find a happy medium between people, and then build something. What happens often in men's ministry or in anything, honestly, because we're guys, we build it and it becomes like the Lord of the Rings. It's my precious, right? And it's how I want it, and it's this and that, and our ego and our worth gets tied to it. And if anyone suggests anything different, then they don't know a dang thing, and I've been doing this for years, and that's just the way we are as men. We like to pee around things, to be honest with you. And so, what you got to do is start listening to your audience. Because I told those same men, I said, they go, well, what do you think? Will you be back? And I said, well, no, I told you I can't come this time of morning. And will you tell other young men? I will, but they're probably not going to come because they have the same issue I do. And they said, well, we've been meeting at 6:15 every Tuesday morning with the same 33 guys for 16 years. I said, okay, tell me about that guy who's stacking chairs. And they said, who? And I got a guy in the corner. They said, well, that's Tim. Tim works at FedEx, he's married, and he's got 2 kids. I said, all right, tell me about Tim. They go, what do you mean? I just told you, he's married, he works at FedEx, and he's got kids. I said, you told me what Google could tell me. Like, I saw he has a FedEx shirt on, but what's his relationship with his wife like? What's his relationship with his kids like? What does he struggle with? Does he go to regular mass? Does he go to regular confession? Does he like his job? What's his favorite football team? They couldn't tell me any of that stuff. And what they were doing was they just got in this rhythm of showing up and doing programmatic things, and then they were wondering, we don't have the audience we want, but we're not willing to change. And we're not growing because, honestly, we're fine with the people we have. And that's the mentality we can get into. So I would suggest that you start looking at what younger men want. What we found is the average age in our groups is 25 to 50. Now, in my group, I have 19, all the way up to 30, 40s, 50s, 60s, and I even got a couple of 80-year-old men in our parish. And they come to all different things. We find more men, it's like building 4 on-ramps. Some guys are never going to walk into a formation room. They're never going to walk into a worship room because of the same reasons that y'all went to confession today. I'm ashamed of something. I'm not the right guy. You're going to see right through me. Same reason I went to confession this morning. But I'll go throw an axe. I'll go drink a beer. There's an easier point of entry there. And sometimes we can paint that as like, oh, that's just a gimmick. No, you invite men to come in wherever they are. What did Jesus say? Teacher, where do you live? Come and see. Come and see. He didn't say, learn these 616 Levitical laws. If you're still into it, come find me. And he invited them in a relationship. So we give these 4 avenues, and then you let men come along. I've seen men go, well, he only comes to fellowship. So what? He wasn't coming to anything before this. Right? You're not Jesus. Don't sit in the judgment seat. Be glad the guy's here and start walking with him, inviting him deeper. So what we found was guys wanted something where they did different things all the time. We wanted variety. I don't want to sit in a room and do the same thing every single week. It took a lot of young men, it's boring, and if it's not impactful to them, they'll say it's not worth my time. We met at 7 o'clock at night because there was something in my parish that met, and it was a Fishers and Men's group. I went when I was on in between work and figuring out, court and all that stuff, what was going to happen with my job. I went to try to show my wife I was doing something. There was 2 guys in their 80s, a deacon and me. And the guys looked at me and said, can you please try to help us get more men to do something? We've been doing this for years and nobody will come. So I saw that same man in a fish fry and I said, look, God's moved my heart. Father wants me to start a men's group. I'd like to do something at night, and that's when we launched the thing. And we've had more success than ever. Because 7 o'clock to 8:30 on Wednesday nights, Protestant church, there's a lot of stuff on Wednesdays. Catholic church, there's not. 7 o'clock in the evening, young men can go home, have dinner with their families. They can take kids to sports. They can help out, do whatever they need to. Come be with their guys. Get back home before 9 o'clock with their older kids and with their wives. If men tell you, I can't make it or I'm too busy, they're giving you excuses because they think that whatever you're doing is not important enough for their time. Guys tell me that, like, I don't have time for that. And they're big as a house. I'm like, how much time do you spend in the gym every day? 3 hours. You got time. What's important to you? Those muscles are great for now, but they're not going to help you when you die. Right? We need spiritual workouts. We need these places to go. So you build it where it's going to be more to people's liking. In the evening has been where we've seen more successful in all the groups around the country. Because younger men can go, they can be away from their families for a little bit. My wife, if I go home and I sit down at 6:45 with my recliner and grab the remote, she'll come in there with my kids and go, what are you doing? I'm tired, I don't feel like going tonight. She's taken the remote out of my hand and said, get up, here's your keys, you're better when you go. Right? Your family starts to support. So that's what we're doing here. So guys, that's the answer to that question. Anybody else got another one?
I have a question, John.
Yeah.
In your experience, what is the best night of the week that you have found that you've had the largest, let's say, attendance for things?
Wednesdays has been the most common, because there just aren't a lot of things on Wednesdays. Guys avoid Monday night for football and all that. Tuesday nights are pretty good, but it's weeknights. Guys on Friday, they don't want to do much. They don't want to do anything on Saturday. Usually there's stuff going on Sunday. And Monday night, guys are footballing or whatever else. Guys are always going to have excuses. If my kids have a game, my kids have team sports, my kids this or that. And all you can do is put it out there, and the guys that come start coming, and then you help those guys be your evangelists that go out and tell people, like, I make time in my life for this because of it.
So your 4 pillars that you do, are those typically all on a Wednesday night, or do you do things on the weekends with that?
We typically do them on the same night because men are creatures of habit. If somebody says, hey, I'm in a men's group, and this week we're meeting Saturday, next week we're meeting Thursday night, and the week after that we're meeting Monday, I'm never going to know what it is, and I'm not going to go. Because I'm like, I have no idea, I don't take a parish bulletin, so I don't know what's going on. So on Wednesday night, our guys may go, this happens every week. Guys will show up, like, what are we doing tonight? It's service. Oh, good, I need to get my head out of my rear end because all I've done is been looking down at my own problems in my own life, and I need to serve somebody else. Things like that.
Do you feel like people that meet weekly is more productive versus, let's say, once a month?
Definitely. I'm always going to tell everybody 4 times a month. And some guys go, oh, I don't even go 1 time a month now you want me to go 4. Here's the reason. You give the devil the opportunities to convince you don't need to be a part of something, he will. All it takes is you meet once or twice a month, and you go home on a weekend where you don't meet, and you have a couple of drinks and watch that ball game and sit in that comfortable chair. Next week when it's time to go again, you go, I didn't go last week, and my life wasn't that bad, my family was happy, my job was okay, like I don't need to go. So we need to build men are creatures of habit, good and bad. When we do this, you're doing 4 different things, so it's not like you're going, okay, we're gonna watch a video every week. Each week, you're getting something to develop the wholeness of yourself each time. And so, consistency in me. I mean, we even meet on the Wednesday before Easter, and we watch Father Larry's Passion video every year. We've all seen it a million times, and every one of us walks out there crying and feeling like we need to go to have penance for the next 20 years of our life. But we do it every year because it's important. There's guys that we made short videos of in my men's group we're about to put out, and one of them said, he's not a guy with a lot of words, but he just sat there and Derek was interviewing him and it was getting weird because he had a mic and he was just not saying anything. And he eventually just said, I know what I was like before this, and I know what I'm like now. And so I would tell anybody out there that they need to be a part of something like this. And he's the guy that'll call you every week, oh, I'm not coming. Why? I've had a bad week, and then I'll make him feel bad, he'll come, and he'll go, I'm so glad I came. And that's why you need to meet on a regular basis. Yes, sir.
Kind of followed up with his question about
Yep.
meeting. We're leaving the morning, we have no space. The pastor, the priest is throwing people out, not because he wants to, he just has no scheduling. If you had much luck having, plus reaching times, different people, more,
Sure.
the morning and evening, like you have your service and your, what was the other one?
Fellowship,
In the
yeah.
evenings, and the other two in the mornings. Same day kind of thing.
Yeah.
Second and fourth is always these two. Have you had any parishes like that, and how was their success?
Not really. I mean, some people, if they were already doing things like that and they implement the 4 pillars, will keep doing that. But for the most part, we try to put them at night and just for consistency and habits and all that stuff. It's easy just for guys to go, it's Wednesday, I know I've got to be somewhere with my guys at 7 o'clock. But that's not to say it wouldn't work. I know it gets harder in the mornings. Yeah.
We wanted to have it at the church.
Well, there's no reason, obviously if you do worship, you gotta have it somewhere in a sacred space, and the priest is gonna be willing to do it, but you could form in somebody's house if you wanted to, you could do formation in somebody's place, I don't know, it's not your group, but, you work with what you got, but, yeah, important thing is to get a priest on board with it too, so he'll be more open to open up those spaces for you too.
So I'm following up on all that. Where do we meet? So on fellowship night
Yeah.
and service night, do you start at the church to gather and then go there? Or do you already plan that out ahead of time and hope that the news gets to all the other guys?
Sure. Well, we haven't planned out, so like, for instance, if this was a mission, and I was saying goodbye to y'all and inviting the team up so the parish could see the team members, they would start talking about, hey guys, we're gonna start meeting this Tuesday night, and it's gonna be every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. And this Tuesday night, we're gonna go to Joe's Pizza in here. And so it's on the schedule, we're adding everybody's emails and numbers into the group we have. There's a calendar reminder that'll be on your app to remind you. And so that's the way you start getting there. Now, the only time we meet at the church before we go somewhere if we're not already at the church is if we're going downtown like a Grizzlies game or something, and we'll carpool together from the church for parking and not having to pay so much to park and all that. But normally our formation, we meet in our family room in our parish. It's a small room with some AV, a couple screens that drop down. We use that for formation. Worship, we're in the church. Service and fellowship, we are wherever we need to go. So if it's Catholic Charities by the airport, we're meeting there. If it's axe throwing, we put the address in there and say, see everybody there. If there's some sort of waiver or something like that, we send the waiver out to everybody, fill it out, and bring it with you. So we try to do all that on the front end. And we try to give guys a runway so they can plan. One of the biggest things in the world that men use for excuses is, I didn't know what you were doing. So we take it away from them. Here's 6 months. It's right there. It's in the bulletin. It's on our social media. We always encourage people to build a social media page for your group so that men can be a part of it. And when you post, they can see what's going on. We do all of those things. And then the group me app, that's my favorite thing that we do. Because you can go in there just like your phone and set a calendar appointment with a picture of what you're doing, a description of what you're doing. You can set 2 alarms. So always set them for an hour before we meet, 2 hours before we meet, so people's phones are going off right before we're supposed to meet. And you can also hit going or not going, so all of a sudden you can do that. I'll often put polls in there, so when we're redoing like what we're gonna do for the next 3 or 6 months, I'll put a poll in, here's the things guys have said they wanted to do, vote on what you want. So if it's, you know, these 4 things, and this is number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, well, guess what? I got our next 5 fellowship nights, and we're gonna go in order of what people wanted to do. So everybody's heard, we get to do what everybody wants, we just start with what the most votes want, and then get to the rest of them. So, yeah, that's some of the things we do there. But you try to make it as easy as possible for people to see that other people are going, that people are excited, and you can change up all the different things you do. We do different things all the time. And that's what keeps people coming back, because they're excited about being together in these new ways all the time.